Okay, what we're going to do here is we're actually going to start, we're just refining our mechs. So the three that we picked from the previous video, we're actually just going to start coming in here and taking a little bit smaller of a brush, taking a little bit more time, and really just trying to see what we can do and how to refine these meshes to make them look more interesting overall. So what I've done so far already really quickly here was I just combined them all into the same layer. And that way I can just kind of manipulate them a little bit faster. And I'm also just going to kind of crop down the document and make it look a little bit better here. So what we'll do is come in here, kind of crop it down, merge them all together. Now what I like to do here is I like to take the smudge tool and I'll take a square brush with it. And what we'll do is we'll set the strength to 100 on the smudge, so at the top. And what I can do is I can come in and I can actually edit the angle of it. So I'm going to hit F5 and brings me up my brush selection. So under just the brush tip shape, we can kind of rotate the angle. So right there you can see it says angle. And we can actually click that and rotate the brush overall. And what we can do with the smudge tool here is actually something pretty incredible. We can kind of push and pull our underlying painting around to kind of add these little details all over our mesh. So that's what I'm kind of just doing. I'm just actually smudging the white into the black because there is no layers. So you can get these really cool happy accidents where we kind of find these cool little designs that just kind of pop out. So I'm just kind of pushing and pulling and kind of cleaning up with the smudge tool, and it allows me just to kind of move big sections or push little sections around. So really interesting results can kind of happen from this. So this first robot, I'm kind of thinking maybe like a little industrious robot, maybe more for moving stuff, not really as much for war. I'm just kind of like cleaning things up. Use the eraser brush there just a little bit. I wasn't really feeling that little extra finger thing. Here I'm kind of painting in just like some overlap to try to show like maybe that's part of the thigh. So what I'm thinking about doing here is maybe adding just some white space, so some negative values can go a long way. Just giving me a little bit of just defining that center and making it my eye kind of focus right there. Just give me some point of interest. Maybe there's like a weird little latchy thing for the wrist. It's not like a big connection to the wrist. It's like a little kind of hydraulic piece. Gonna just fill it in a little bit here. See what kind of shapes might come. Wasn't really feeling it. This whole time I'm just kind of thinking about overall shape, like what looks interesting, like what just feels good. Trying to get like your very basic perspective, right? Like 90% of this the perspective's off, but it's more just like what's the overall feeling I'm going for. So again here, I wanted to move that arm in a little bit. So I just kind of moved the arm over, lassoed around the hand, and just shifted over and just started like kind of painting back in the details. So maybe like these little knee pad things, just giving some visual interest, kind of breaks up, just giving me something different, kind of coming off the leg. Push and pull these in with the smudge tool again. Just kind of experimenting, seeing what shapes we can come up with. Maybe there's like a little bit of a bend in it, maybe a cut. These are like little cuts in. Wasn't really feeling this middle section here being open too much. Maybe there's some like little wires that come across, connect it. Could be a little cockpit. And I was also missing, like I had this kind of big black, just empty void of information. And sometimes it's nice just to give a little bit of contrast in there. So I kind of put a little implied line with the white and then painted it back away with the black just to give the eye somewhat little separation so it feels more like a top and a bottom. And then a little kind of white dot to kind of give you some focus. Maybe he's got like a little face or a camera. Some point of interest that it's interesting and bold enough that it catches your attention. So here I'm experimenting, trying to figure out what works. Maybe these are little missile pods or maybe they're just sensors. And again, I'm just kind of painting in some white. So here I use the ellipse tool to get a perfect circle instead of just taking the painstaking amount of time to paint a circle. I can just use Photoshop's power and I'll put a white circle down and then a black over it just to kind of give me that nice perfect curve. So I don't have to like spend the time trying to perfectly hand paint this half curve thing. Let the tools help you. Like that is one of the biggest things you can take away from 2D art or 3D art, anything with a computer. The tools are there for a reason. They're not for cheating. especially in production art, you want to use what's available to you. Like, use every tool that's available inside of Photoshop. Nothing that's hacky or cheap. Unless you're straight up just like stealing other people's work, use all the tools that are available. So here I'm just using the smudge tool again, experimenting with some shapes, trying to pull some things out. Maybe he's got these like weird kind of like toes. Just something different. Maybe it doesn't connect all the way. Maybe it's only connected on one side. Just to try to make it just different. Like, we're just, again, this point, we're not committed to any shapes or designs. We're just playing with the overall kind of aesthetic. Like, what would be interesting? What's the purpose? Maybe he needs these like little toes because he like goes on rocks. You know, he wants to kind of grip better to the terrain, and he needs to have these like little boots. So I'm just kind of mimicking it to the other feet. Not trying to pay too much attention to just overall perspective and stuff, just kind of like roughing it in. So I wasn't really happy with that straight line. Try it like with an angle. It just feels a little bit more kind of supportive, and it's more interesting than just a straight line. So using the smudge tool here, kind of just pulling some little details out. Maybe these like little sensor bars, maybe little light bars, or I can make it like a little antennae. Or I think I was like originally concepting this as being in my head like a little metal support beam to kind of protect the sensors going around it. Just putting these little arms on the outside kind of gives you just visual interest as something to look at. Maybe there's a little sensor that sits out there. So painting in just a little box really quickly with the cube, and then white just to give it a highlight to catch your eye, just to kind of give you something to look at. So I'm just painting in some very simple white lines here to imply just some maybe design. So maybe there's this like cylinder kind of camera thing in the front, and it's like a very basic overall kind of idea. And what I can do is I'll come back in after this and I'll kind of paint out the white just to kind of pull it back, because right now it's so bold, it catches your eye a lot, just to kind of make it a lot less important. So see, now they've already kind of graded out. It doesn't beg for your attention like it did before, and we want that. We just want it to imply that there's a surface change or there's some kind of system there. And kind of playing off that idea of that camera, kind of just came in there, pulled it off the bottom. It's more interesting where it's a little bit lower, and do a little white and a little black just to kind of imply that there's a little lens. So here I'm just kind of turning off my shape dynamics and making it 100% black, just to kind of give me a little bit more power potential. So thinking about these, maybe these are like little eyes, little sensors out there. He's got a little highlight on his body, maybe a little light. Gonna cut in some details just to give myself a more interesting silhouette. Like, I'm not thinking about anything in particular. I'm just kind of thinking where I have straight lines. Sometimes it's nice to just add a little bit of detail. I'm trying to experiment with some like different kind of feet. These like kind of wedge shaped feet. And again, always just trying to think roughly at the same time. If any of this stuff has a purpose, like maybe his arm is like a little kind of just, it's a rack for just holding ammunition. It doesn't need to be overly specific, and it doesn't need to be overly detailed. You just have to kind of play with the shape and see what's working. So I was kind of feeling like maybe his back here was actually kind of like more an exposed kind of robot spine, and just getting some texture in there to explore it. I eventually got a little bit too much information, so it was getting too noisy, and wasn't really what I was looking for. So I just kind of went back on it and started reworking it. And that's something that's really critical at this stage, is don't be afraid if it's not working to just kill it and start over and see what does work. So I was trying to put these little cuts in the sides, see if that felt better. I started liking this a little bit. Just want to play with, make it feel like it's attached more, because it was just kind of disconnected and not really feeling it was a part of the body. So I'll come in here, just painting in more, pushing and pulling. Really just trying to see if there's any more interesting shapes that I kind of pull out. So maybe it's got these like cool little antennas kind of coming off the top, just to give these like interesting designs. And I'm going to clean it up just a little bit, just a little easier to read, kind of know what's going on. Just playing with this idea on top of his head. Maybe he's got like another little extra piece, but it was fighting for too much attention, and it was taking away from these really cool eyes I had. So ultimately I kind of just scrapped them, said, yeah, maybe it's not the best. little wires, little details, like little small things that just kind of make a difference in the overall composition. You can really kind of play with and push and pull and just see what you can kind of get to come out. So here, continue just to clean up. Now even these arms are different arms, but I'm just kind of playing with them and seeing which one works better. Maybe one eventually would feel better in the end. So I'll kind of go through and I'll even draw them differently just to see, like, you know, I like the right one better or I like the left one better. And I'm not committed because at this time I'm just kind of experimenting, and it's just faster than I have to redraw the entire robot. So I'll kind of just concept each arm being different, and if I liked it, I just copy and paste over the one I liked. So here I'm inventing maybe these like little guns he has, or maybe they're like swords instead of being guns, just to be something different. And we're gonna add a little bit of a highlight around the edge just to kind of separate from the leg so we can tell that there's something there. So we'll just pull it back. And what we're gonna do now is we're just gonna pick one of these and refine it for the next video.